Happy Thursday, everyone. Welcome to Leadership Forward, which is powered by Strengthening the Black Church for the 21st Century, as well as the Black Church Matters. We are so excited that you are here. I am Candi Cylar, and on behalf of Dr. Michael L. Bowie, our Executive Director, I welcome you and thank you for joining us to Third Thursday's Leadership Forward. Tonight, like no other, is going to be great, very powerful. We're glad that you're on. If you have not dropped your location in the chat, would you please do so? Hey, Daddy, my daddy's on from Gaston, Alabama. I see Willingboro, New Jersey, Paris, Tennessee, Alpharetta, Georgia, Spartanburg, Birmingham, Alabama, Orangeburg, South Carolina, St. Louis, Missouri. Thank you all for joining us tonight. So tonight, y'all, we have a special guest. Like I said, a friend of mine, a pastor, a coach, Reverend Timothy Fryar, who's going to talk to us about self-leadership. Now, I'm going to tell you why I'm so excited about this is because I just had a birthday, and my vision for this year is eat, pray, love. So what I feed my soul with, I will continue to pray, but listen more and love as much as I can, and hopefully attract more love. So this is part of my self-leadership. So I'm really curious. I got my notebook ready. I got two, actually. Got a journal and a notepad that I'm ready to take notes tonight to just help me kind of get into this year in the place that I need to be. So Pastor Tim, like I said, he's a pastor, but he's also the CEO of the Regroup. The Regroup is an executive coaching company, and they help you basically get on track. So they're a firm that helps leaders to reach their growth potential. So Tim is based out of Atlanta, he and his family. He's also the senior pastor of Christ-Centered Church, which is also based in Atlanta. He's been here like most people come when you're young in 1991, come for college and then never leave. Atlanta is just that place. But when I say one of the dopest individuals that I know that can merge the word with life and make it come to life and make you want to be a better person, the person that God is calling you to be. So I'm not going to read his whole bio. I want you to know that you're in for a treat. Just an FYI to everyone, if you have not subscribed to SBC 21's newsletter, so you will know exactly when and who we have coming up next, you go to sbc21.org and scroll to the bottom and sign up for our newsletters. I promise we don't send out a whole lot of emails at all. So Tim, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay. Thank you, Candi. Good evening, everybody. And thank you so much for coming on. Thank you, Candi, for inviting me. And thank you, Stephanie, for helping me out on tech stuff. So guys, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Candi, you're going to have to keep me up on time because I do feel like we're going to, I think we're going to have a flow here tonight.
Okay.
So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So everybody, my assignment tonight is to talk to us about self-leadership in the midst of change. Okay. And so I want to bring this thought forward tonight, and I want to start here. It says transformation does not happen with information alone. There must be conversation and connection. The reason I'm bringing this forward first is because here's what I exist to do. I exist to develop people. That's why I exist. Everything I do, everywhere I go, this is just who I am. It is why I'm in the earth. So I said that to say that my prayer is that our time together tonight is transformational. But it's not just because I'm giving you information. What happens after this is that there should be conversation and connection. Both of those need to happen externally and internally. Okay, there's an external conversation that we start, that you keep carrying, that you keep talking, and you keep that conversation alive. Through that, transformation starts to happen. Okay, it's kind of like listening to the radio, that the more you listen to a song on the radio, you start singing it, but you have not even downloaded it to your phone. But because you listen to it on the radio, you start singing the backgrounds at first, and then after that, you'll sing a verse, and it just becomes a part of you. That brings about transformation. That's external conversation, external connection, internal conversation. We'll talk about that in a little bit, and this internal connection. So as we talk about self-leadership, let's roll with a working definition. First of all, let's say, here's a thought. My pastor, Darius Daniels, always says this: the most important and consequential person you will ever lead is you. The most important person, most important and consequential person you'll ever lead is you. So let's look at this self-leadership definition. Andrew Bryant and Anna Kazan says this, that self-leadership is the practical and is the practice of intentionally influencing our thinking, feeling, and behaviors to achieve our objectives. Okay, it's the practice of intentionally influencing our behavior, our thinking, our feelings, our behaviors. I love this because all of that matters. When we start talking about leadership, leadership is not just how I think. Okay, for the organizations that I lead, I consider myself the chief thinking officer. Okay, there's some things I have to tell myself that I cannot put my hands to because it will take away from my thinking time. So I like this definition because it deals with thinking, it deals with my feeling, okay, it deals with my behaviors. All of that matters in leading organizations, but it matters even more so in self-leadership, okay? So we understand what leadership is, but we do not hear a lot about self-leadership. Here's leadership. Here's the picture of leadership. The picture of leadership is someone out in front and a team that follows, a person that leads the team in whatever industry that may be. But I want to challenge us tonight that we look at leadership like this first. Because leadership, and I'm trying to see if I can keep the Candi, I can't get my my chat box back open to see if there's any questions or comments there. But self-leadership forms the foundation for effective leadership in every area, okay? It is indeed the example. It is the model. And so since I am amongst practitioners and leaders, and I know many of you are church leaders, it is the model of Jesus, okay? I appreciate God for not having a demand of me that I did not first have a model for. Jesus is that model, okay? He was at all points tempted and yet without sin. He was human all the way through. He was God and human all the way through. He is the model for me. So then as we lead others, we must first be able to manage leading ourselves. Family is hard. I mean, let's just be real about it. Leading ourselves is hard. That's why we start the diet every Monday. You know what I mean? It's Wednesday and we tell ourselves, hey, I'm gonna start dieting on Monday. Well, why not start on Wednesday? Because today is the day. No, I need to eat all I can eat. So then when Monday comes, I'll start on Monday. And then when Monday comes, yeah, about that. Because what happens is we often, listen, this is not even in my notes, but here it is. We often mislead ourselves by lying to ourselves. We probably lie to ourselves more than we lie to anybody else. But we give ourselves an out because the struggle is real when it comes to leading self. Think about it this way. It is easier to encourage somebody to have a good day, to change their thinking. It's easy to tell somebody it's going to be all right. I believe it. I got faith with you. It's going to work. But then when it comes to you, it doesn't work that way. I need to stay in the bed. I don't feel like getting up. I don't want to talk to anybody. I'm down. I just feel so heavy. Why? Because it's easier to lead others than it is to lead ourselves. And I want to challenge you in our time together tonight when it comes to self-leadership, okay? Let's sit that on the shelf. Let's deal with change, because I want to give us enough time to discuss, ask questions, but self-leadership. Maxwell says that everything rises and falls on leadership, okay? That can be expanded several different ways, but fundamentally, structurally, I agree with that. And if that is the truth, then so it goes, not just in organizations, but also in our lives, that everything rises and falls on leadership, okay? So let's talk about change for a minute. Change is the thing that people don't like, okay? We hear it all the time that people are not a fan of change. As I have worked in many organizations, large Fortune 500 organizations, and come in as a consultant and come in to help them navigate change and be a partner with them in change leadership, people don't like change. They don't like the shift, feelings get hurt. It's like, hey, I want to move you to this role. It's not that I'm firing you. It's just based on how you've been growing. We see that you may be better served, or you may serve the company better in this role. So that's why we want to pull you over here. Oftentimes people are offended and they want to talk to HR, and, production goes down because people do not manage change well. Okay. But I want to say this. Change is always happening. Look at how we're living. Look at the class we're in tonight. Change is always happening. The world changed drastically as we dealt with COVID. And now, even after COVID, the world has not, we would say that things were upside down. But I don't know if things ever got right side up. I'm a proponent now that the church will never be the same again because of the way things have changed. So because the world is always changing, we have to be a little more fluid and flexible in, hear me, receiving, flowing with change, and learn how to manage it and navigate through it, okay? So you were born with what you need to manage change. You were born with that ability to manage change, okay? We often resist change because of the way it makes us feel. Because change is real, family. Okay, it's real. But we resist it because of the way it makes us feel. But I want to say to you that change, see this in your mind, change is the vehicle that moves us from being comfortable to thriving. Change is the vehicle that moves us from being comfortable to thriving. Okay, so in November of 2021, I got married. I saw Rev, I think you called him Rev Kev from St. Louis. My wife is from St. Louis. And so she moved here, and I have two bonus teenage daughters that came with her. She moved here from St. Louis, changed. She loved me enough to come here and to uproot her life and the lives of her daughters and bring them here, okay? I loved her enough to open my home and to say, come on, we're gonna do this together, opposed to, why don't you live in St. Louis and I live here? Well, why? Because that's not, relationally, is that gonna work? Come on, after a while, nah. And I know people debate that all, and I know that people nowadays are doing that marriage thing in two different places, but I digress. So she comes here. I'm like, okay, I'm changing. I'm moving stuff to one side of the closet. I'm emptying drawers and all of that because we love each other. But family, loving me enough to move here, me, loving her enough to ask her to marry me does not mean that we do not have uncomfortable moments, because as we amalgamate our lives, uncomfortable moments happen. Okay. And so change, it was a change for her, a change for me. It is producing something, but the end goal of what we want is going to be fantastic. Okay. Because I mean, it does not yet appear what we shall be, but it does not mean that love cancels uncomfortable moments. Well, change is the vehicle that takes us from being comfortable to really thriving in life. Are y'all with me? I wish I could get some hearts or something. I can't see nothing. I'm trying to see some chats, Candi. I can't see anything. So the thing that we got to understand is that we were born with this. Do me a favor, put in the chat, I was born to manage change. And I'm gonna tell you why. You ready? So we got this cute little baby on the screen. I want you to picture this. This is, everybody has dealt with this. The most traumatizing moment, one of the most traumatizing moments, let me say it this way, the first traumatic experience that a baby has is going from the womb to the outside world. It's called the birth canal. The birth canal is so narrow and so small. So the baby goes from this womb that is nice, cozy, comfortable. It is cushioned with the amniotic fluid. I am hooked up to a pump and mommy's feeding me and life is good. But I'm growing. And there is a period of time that I have to grow. And when I meet that, it's time for me to move to the next place. So I have to deal with the trauma of the birth canal that takes me from being comfortable really to a place of thriving, because I can only grow but so much in the womb. But when I come into the world, I have space to not only grow, but to thrive. But the trauma is the birth canal that, listen, I don't walk through the birth canal as a baby. I'm pushed through it. The mother takes all of, come on, ladies, y'all here, y'all mamas, y'all know what I'm talking about. Takes all that they could possibly get, all the power that they can get to be able to push this baby through. And the baby is coming through a small space with a lot of pressure in order for the baby to get to the place of thriving. What I'm saying to you is that in order for you to even come out of the birth canal, you had to manage the pressure, the being uncomfortable through that vehicle of change from being in utero to being in the world. Are you with me? And that's why I'm saying to you, you were born with the ability to manage change. Are y'all with me? We resist it because of how it makes us feel. But I want to encourage you that change brings uncomfortable moments, but self-leadership helps us manage uncomfortable moments. Okay? As I was developing this content about 2 years ago, I think it was, this content actually came out of an ask that I had with Atlanta Gas, with Southern Company Gas, downtown Atlanta, asked me to do with their customer service department, asked me to do this talk because they keep growing and developing, and they wanted their employees to understand how leadership has this expectation of them to manage themselves. So as I was writing this content, I was sitting on my front porch. It began to rain. It was really, really raining, but my front porch is covered. So I like to sit outside in the rain. Most days you'll catch me either in the backyard or on the front porch. I'm always there. So as it began to rain, I noticed that because it was summer, I got this group of trees in front of my in the front yard, and there were about 5 birds that came into these trees. Okay, now listen, don't talk about me because I'm about to tell y'all about experience I had. Don't click off. Just stay with me. So 4 of the birds, because of the heavy downpour, left the trees. And in between my neighbor's house and my house, there is a berm of trees, and they are evergreen trees, or like spruce. So it's always, foliage there, it is green. So 4 of the birds left, and they went over there because there was more cover from the rain. But I noticed there was one bird that kept flying away and flying back to the tree. So I'm noticing this, and I'm looking to see what's going on here. Well, this particular bird was building a nest in the tree. So here's what I said to myself. I said, I wonder why this bird wouldn't just go and get in the more coverage, get in the trees that had more coverage for him. And then when the rain let up, he could come back. So I imagine, don't talk about me, just go with me. I imagine I'm having this conversation with the bird. Like, bro, why don't you go over there? Because every once in a while he would flutter to get the rain off of his feathers, but yet still he would go get his straw, come back. I'm like, bro, why don't you just stay over there with your friends, till the rain lets up? And it was as if the bird is having a conversation with me. Here's what he said. Here's what he said to me in my mind. He said, I have a goal to finish this nest. And while I'm still watching them, out of nowhere, the rain stops. It's one of those summer showers. Sun comes back out, and he's steady working. And it's as if he says to me, because my goal is so important to me, I had to manage myself to work through uncomfortable rain so that when the rain stops, I can still keep my pace. I don't have to pick up where I left off. So I'm managing myself. It's uncomfortable, yes, because rain weighs down my feathers, which is why I have to stop to shake it off. But instead of stopping my work, I managed myself to stay focused in an uncomfortable situation. Listen, yeah, it was a imaginary conversation, but it helped me tremendously, because what I have had to learn to do is to keep working in uncomfortable situations, and that is self-leadership. Are y'all with me? Okay, so it is the same pressure that we understand how diamonds are made. Pressure produces valuable outcomes. I was watching just the other day, somebody they were opening a pearl or pearls. They were harvesting pearls. And as they opened these pearls or these clams, there were several pearls in there. But of course, every pearl represented for the clam a place of irritation. And so the clam has the resin inside of themselves to capsulize the grains of sand that land inside of them. They put this resin around it to harden it. So when they open their mouths again, they'll be able to spit it out better. That's how a pearl is formed, just in case you didn't know that. It's from irritation. To the same degree, family, self-discipline, when we stick with it, it produces an outcome that's valuable. I don't care where you lead or who you lead. The people you lead, the organizations you lead, the home you lead, the club you lead will only be better to the degree that we can lead ourselves. Okay? So then, I said that change brings uncomfortable moments, but self-leadership helps you manage them. So let me give you 5 nuggets, and then we're going to jump back in. I'm going to end this section. We're going to jump back in and kind of dissect some things, answer some questions, because I see my time is really about gone. So let me give you 5 nuggets right here that I think it'll help. Number 1, if you're going to lead yourself in the midst of change, number 1, you got to have goals and visions. Now listen, I know that's pretty like, dog, Tim, that's like simple. Everybody knows that. Yeah, but here's what I want to say about that. It's not just about having a goal or having a vision. You have to I have to, okay, thank you, Candi. I have 20 more minutes. Thank you. You have to, here's what I want to say about goals and visions in self-leadership. Listen, you have to go there before you get there. Self-leadership is going to push you to the end of a thing so it can help you manage and navigate the journey to get to it. Okay. Some would call it faith. You got to go there before you get there. You got to see it before you see it. Are you hearing what I'm saying? So in managing yourself, you got to go. Listen, when I'm here recently, I've lost some weight. I lost some weight because our church did a fast. And so now I'm staying with it. And so I have a couple of pictures that every once in a while on my phone, I go back to look at when I was in my cuter days. I was smaller, a little smaller. I got to see it before I see it. Because if I get there and look around in that space of my goal, if I sit down in what I am envisioning, when I live it out, self-discipline is a little easier because I've had some time to spend at that place of my goals or the place of my visions. Okay, let's go. Here's the next one. You got to have self-awareness. Now, I could spend forever talking about self-awareness. Our challenge is we don't know ourselves. Self-leadership is going to will call for you to know you. Who are you? And sometimes you got to ask yourself, who am I? No, not who have I been? Who am I now? Are you hearing me? I am so much better now because I know myself at a different level. You hear what I'm saying? It's not so much about knowing what I want. It's also about knowing what I don't want. And all of that matters. Are y'all with me? Let me push through. So you got 5 nuggets for self-leadership in the midst of change. You got to have goals and visions. You got to go there before you get there. You got to have self-awareness. You got to know you. Here's number 3. You have to have self-correction and self-control. Let's let that breathe. Self-correction and self-control. Here's what I mean. Both of those are crucial in managing yourself. You know, stuff like this. You can't seize a moment because you see a moment. You got to have enough self-control to say, you know what? I'm not going to say that. Nope, I'm not going to do that. I might be justified in saying what I need to say, but maybe it's not the best time to say it. Okay? That's self-correction, self-control. Pull yourself back. Self-leadership is at a place, you have to get to a place with your self-leadership where you could say, don't say that. Don't do that. Okay? You got to get to a place, listen, where you operate with responding opposed to reacting. Reacting says, I'm giving you what I feel, but a response is something that I've thought about. Self-discipline, self-correction, or self-control, self-correction. I got to respond more than react. So then that comes to that place of pulling yourself back so I do not react. Let me process this a minute. So then when I come back, I'm thought out. And I don't have to deal with the fact of I said a few things that I didn't really mean to say in the what we call the heat of the moment. At what place in life do you not learn how to control your own thermostat? Yeah. Okay. Let's go. Goals and visions, self-awareness, got to have self-control and self-correction and self-control. Here's number 4. There must be self-talk. I like to call it self-chatter. Okay. It is okay to talk to yourself. And you also need to know it's necessary. It's okay to talk to yourself. I talk to myself. Sometimes my wife said, who are you talking to? Because I'm talking to myself. Like, Tim, what are you thinking? Yeah, self-chatter is important. You got this, dude. You got everything it takes. I know it's a heavy week. You got a lot. And yeah, some of the things you got to do, you feel like shouldn't fall on you. But you got to tell yourself, yep, but you can manage it. You can handle it. You've had worse situations and you lived through it. You're going to be okay. Listen, if I was at church, I'd go and talk to David real quick. When David would ask himself a question, he talked to himself all the time. Why art thou cast down, O my soul? David asked himself, what's wrong with you? Why are you down? Yeah, David. When David says, I will lift up, this is how we most of the time we quote this scripture that says, I will lift up my eyes unto the hills from whence cometh my help. My help comes from the Lord. That is not how that reads. It really reads, David is saying, I will lift up my eyes to the hills. Then he asks himself a question. Go back, look at it. He asks himself a question. From where does my help come from? Where do I get my help? And then he answers it, my help comes from the Lord, because self-chatter matters. Okay, I got to go. Number 5, last one. If you're going to have self-leadership in the midst of change, you're going to have to make right decisions. You got to make right decisions. And that's why responding matters. That's why self-control and self-correction matters, okay? Knowing yourself. That's why your goals and decisions and your visions matter, because you got to ask yourself, will this decision get me to where I'm trying to go? Listen, everyday struggle. I'm type 2. Candi put me on to their family doctor, and he is helping me. My A1C is coming down, and it's absolutely great. I keep my insulin with me, but I still struggle. Somebody almost hit me in the back today because I slowed down passing Dunkin' Donuts. Don't judge me. Don't look at me like that. Look how you looking. Don't look at me like that. You slow down, you struggle. Some of y'all just turn on in there. But listen, I know where I want to be. Not just in the way I look, but also how I feel. I need to get off some of these meds. And I realize that I got to make right choices. Are y'all with me? Okay. All right, Candi. So tell me where we are. That's all I have as it relates to slides and notes, but maybe we want to talk about it a little more deeper. There may be some questions. So I want to leave some space for that. And if I need to go back and clarify, okay, now I can see it. The bird whisperer. Yes, Michael, I am the bird whisperer. Yes. I see Carolyn says that is hard at times. Tell me what is hard at times. I didn't see your chat at what I was talking
So
about.
I will read. She had a couple of questions in the Q&A. So
Yes.
I'll read those, and then we may be able to pinpoint the specific area that she was speaking from. So she goes back to when you first talked about the bird and said, why did you call the bird that kept working in uncomfortable situations a he?
Probably that's because I'm one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. He, she, or it was working.
Okay. In self-chatter,
Mhm.
how do you deal with those around you saying or thinking you are crazy?
Oh, well, you know where you're headed. You know your goals. And so when there's self-chatter, you also have to manage the volume of external chatter.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are many people in your life who will just offer opinions because they are around you. But you have to resolve that there are few people, or there are certain people that I listen to as it relates to external chatter. But when it comes to internal chatter, you know what you got going on. You know where you're headed. And what they say cannot derail your journey or interrupt your conversation when you know you got something ahead of you.
Okay. So Kim Ulette says, how do you move yourself from inaction to action in order to begin triggering the 5 tips? The 5 tips that you gave.
How do you move yourself from inaction to action? I think we have to, for number one, there has to be, first of all, just a decision to move. Okay. So let me tell you why I get your question. for people who are multi-talented, and I think Candi and I talk about that, who are multi-gifted, multi-talented, that can do this, and this. When you have so many different gifts and talents, you tend to become paralyzed because you don't know where to go first. And so I wrote a book that I never released called The Next Step. And the first point in that book is you just got to take a step. Okay. You have to decide, this is the way I'm going. I'm going to tackle this first. And then you take a step. Here's the other thing about taking that step. As you begin to take one, the natural sequence of life is that when you take one step, another follows. But then you have to celebrate mile markers as you get down the road. Okay. And that'll also help you. What helps me sometimes is that I set my own mile markers. I set my own rewards. And so my pastor often says to me, hey, Tim, when you move the ball down the field, you got to take a break. So that's another thing. When you start thinking in yourself, you know what, here's what I'm going to do. Small goal. I'm going to work this week on the first few pages of my book. This is your example. Okay. First few pages of my book. I'm going to work this week. I'm going to make myself do it on Tuesday. When you do it on Tuesday, celebrate you. And so that'll start drawing you a little bit more into consistent action, where at first it may be the dreaded action, but it takes you into to consistent action. I hope does that help? Did that help at all?
I'm sure it did, but she'll let us know.
Okay.
So the next question is, would you say that Jesus was a self-leader?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I said it. He was he was angry and he did not sin. If that ain't self-leadership, I don't know what is.
Mm-hmm.
He knew how to manage himself in the Garden of Gethsemane when the only time we see that Jesus and God were not on one accord was in the Garden of Gethsemane. God is like, hey, we're on a plan here. Jesus is like, hold on, can we renegotiate this? If there's any other way, let's see if we can take that road. Self-management says, but nevertheless, because I realize the way I'm thinking, the way I'm operating is less than what we agreed upon, is less than what you called me to. Nevertheless, not my will, but yours. Let's roll on.
Another question is, what is the value of others and their support as it relates to self-leadership, or is it really going at it alone?
No. I believe that the value of others as it relates to self-leadership is accountability. As a coach, one of the biggest things that I lean upon when I'm coaching an individual, a coachee, is accountability. When there is a plan that has been put in place from a coaching session, I ask the question, who do you have in your life that you can share this with and they can hold you accountable? 2 questions. Who do you have to share this with? And can they hold you accountable? Because just because I tell you does not mean that I'm going to let you hold me accountable. You know how people are. You can't tell me what to do. So the value of others around you is accountability. You need to have it. There has to be somebody in your life that you're willing to submit to. Family member, friend, there has to be mutual submission somewhere.
Yeah.
So they can say to you, hey, you said you was going to do this today. Did you get it done? And why didn't you get it done?
Well, and that's because we are relational creatures. So yes, God designed us to be able to have that relationship with someone.
Yes.
And we can't do hard things alone.
Yes. I mean, I believe it is in our creative DNA to connect with others.
So going back to the Garden of Gethsemane, somebody said they will call the Garden of Gethsemane an example of self-talk.
It's both then. Yeah,
both
I
things.
get you. Yeah, it's not only that, then let's go back to, it's also an example of not letting what others are not doing discourage you from staying on task. So it's all of that right there. because I mean, the other disciples, they were sleeping. I think Jesus was a little like sideways with them a little bit. Like, bro, I'm trying to, y'all can't pray. So it's all of that. It's self-talk, it's self-correction. All of that is right there. That's a great observation.
Somebody said, deal with trauma to get to triumph.
That is, I mean, that's birth.
That is.
That's birth. With everything, listen, if we allow the things that do not go well in our lives, our trauma, if we allow it, it can push us into a better space. And that's where we get from just being comfortable or just living to thriving.
Do we have any more questions? Feel free to drop them in the chat. We have a little bit more time. Or feel free to drop them in the Q&A. Let's go back to, while we're waiting and see if anyone has more questions, let's go back to talk about self-control. I was really feeling and taking notes. I literally just had this conversation the last 2 days about maturing to the point that you can not react, but respond. And I thought I had gotten there, Pastor Tim. And I somebody caught me at a vulnerable moment, and I reacted. And I hate when I do that, because then it just eats me up inside.
Sure.
Instead of pausing. And I was just telling somebody today, I said, you have to step away, pause, process everything before you react, so that you could give a reasonable response.
Yes.
And you will find out sometimes that it's not, in this situation, it was like somebody said something. So are you being, is the person being malicious? If you take a minute to process what's going on and understand their situation, you may understand that they're not. But instead, sometimes we constantly just react. And that's how we hurt people. That's why it's a lot of hurt in the church, because we're reacting versus responding.
Yes. I think you said so much good stuff right there. You just said a whole lot of good stuff. It is a maturity level. I think it is also, we have to mature to be able to see it as value when somebody else triggers that in us. The value is, if we're alone, we'll think that we have been successful at a thing, but we don't know that we're not until we come into that moment. So it's like, I'm working on this. I think I got it. It's going to take that one person to tell you you don't have it.
When you don't have it.
Yeah.
So real quick, while we're talking about that, somebody just asked a question, and all my Q&A went away. Stephanie, I don't know if you were cleaning it up for me, but Jackie just posted a question. I don't know, Jackie, who I got a glimpse of Jackie that just popped up. So Jackie, if you will post your question again, we'll definitely get to it, but I just lost it on my screen. So yes, back to what you were saying, Pastor Tim.
And so the other thing you just said right there at the end, you talk about how what you said was, if I would just pause and put myself in their shoes, it would cause me to respond differently.
Versus react.
That takes me to the story of the Good Samaritan, because everybody in the text, the Levite, the priest, they have titles, social titles. There's a Levite, you're a priest, okay? However, and then the Samaritan has his social title, but the one that he helped was called, he was the man, a certain man who fell among thieves, because he was given the title based on his circumstance. And when I look at people based on their circumstance, if I put myself in their shoes, my response may be a little better. If I put myself like, hey, I don't know, maybe that's how they saw it. Maybe that's the way they were raised. That comes from like with Carolyn. Carolyn said, well, why it had to be a she? Okay, Carolyn, I'm down. So I had to put myself in Carolyn's position. Carolyn's a woman. She sees the world through those lenses. You know what I mean? Got it. We work together and we see each other on each side. And so then my response should be from, maybe if I was in their shoes, I would see this differently. I don't know why they asked. Let me not assume,
Mhm.
that that person said that to me in a slick way.
She says, can you speak to this? As we lead and improve, as we lead and improve and feel good about ourselves, what happens if our congregations refuse to change and follow our leadership? Ooh, that's a loaded question.
That is a loaded question. And so without having more context, here's what I would say to you. In going into, as I consult with churches and with pastors, one thing I say to pastors when it's time for change to happen in a church, particularly those who are new coming in, I tell them to be slow with change,
Mhm.
but put the people in conflict with God and not with you.
Mhm.
So if
Mhm.
the change or the things that need to happen and you see it as this is a God vision, here it is, it's a biblical path, then we preach the path based on what God has said. And then the people eventually will come around because either they'll be in right place with God or they'll be in conflict with God. But you don't have to have them to be in conflict with you. Hopefully like I said, without other context, but right off the top of my head, when they don't want to receive it, make sure they see it in the context of biblical text and what God is saying.
Mhm. Mhm. That's good. That's good. Because and that's why we have to continue to um put the word before our people
Mhm.
and offer leadership opportunities where they're able to see how, you know, the say for instance the disciples took leadership roles and what their leadership roles were, but how you can use the disciples as a tool to teach your leadership. And
Mhm.
so that is putting people in conflict with themselves based on the Bible while you're trying to make change. You can never make change. First of all, leadership 101 is to never walk in the door making change,
Yes,
to
right.
understand the historical um, reasoning behind it is what it is. But
Right.
then there's also, unfortunately, a political way that you have to move about in order to get people there. But when you, like you said, Tim, put in a word before them and let them be in conflict with God and
Yes.
not with you
Yes.
is powerful.
Yes.
Okay. My daddy says self-control is the most difficult fruit of the spirit, and
It
he
is. So.
struggles, and he is not alone.
Yeah, we all struggle. And yes,
Mhm.
Carolyn, I hear you. It's based on seeing all people. I agree with you 100%.
Mhm. Mhm.
So yeah, we all struggle
Limitation
with
of others
self-control.
can't be allowed to get in the way. Kimulette was affirming you and saying limitations of others can't be allowed to get in the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Amen. This has been good. Situation is that I came home to pastor home church, and they all want it to be left in the past as they
Mm.
die out.
hmm hmm
Mhm.
So yes, I hear you. I so hear you. I grew up Free Will Baptist, and many years ago, my home pastor, who's now passed away, what I early in ministry for me, wanted me to come back home. He wanted me to come back home and not pastor the church. He wanted me to preach at the church while he still was the pastor. And I told him, no, I didn't think that was going to work. But having gone back and visit and preach often, what I find with that is that those changes have to be incremental. You have to speak and preach to also the next generation. And just like Candi said, some of them, or somebody just said it about some of them some of the challenge ones, I mean, they can't live forever, but there has to be small incremental changes. But again, when you preach Jesus, when you preach the Bible, some of those issues will fall off and some of those people will leave if you keep preaching Jesus and they don't want to go with him.
Mhm.
So though the changes, you have to steady yourself for a long journey, but knowing that the end road will be successful, but it's just going to take time. And so then you'll need accountability partners. You need somebody that's going to coach and walk alongside you as you do that and kind of talk about small incremental changes. And then the other thing that you deal with is you were that little girl or the little, you were the one that was there as a kid and they know you from way back. And I mean, the text is true that the prophet is not without honor, but in his own country. It's just the truth. But when you preach Jesus, those changes will happen. So you got to turn the corner gently so you don't turn over the whole wagon, but you'll be able to get it done. I know you will.
Yes, yes, yes. Well, it's 8:30. We want to thank you for joining us, and we'll be back the third Thursday of March. And next month we will have Pastor Twanda King. Stephanie, if you'll post that for me, we'll have Pastor Twanda King, who is going to talk about a pastor's journey to wholeness and communication. Now, this is not just for pastors. That is the title of her book and her research, but you can also glean from it in whatever position that you're in. So we hope that you will join us. Tomorrow we should have our registration up for the next Leadership Forward. So be on the lookout at sbc21.org. And also, again, just take a moment to tell us how we're doing, what you want to hear, and what we can improve on. So with that said, I would like to bid you a good night. Rest well, and we will see you all on the third Thursday of March. Thank you so much, Pastor Tim. If you want to follow Tim, would you give him your social media handles?
Yes, it is very simply on Facebook, Timothy Fryar. It's Fryar, and on Instagram, the same, Fryar, Timothy Fryar.
All right. Have a great night, everyone. And we will see you soon.